Hello, I am Deepak. I will talk about computational model for visual information processing. Devaja talked about ConvNet. I will give a computational model for visual information processing where we can use ConvNet in intermediate step. Hello, I am Deepak Mewala. I will talk about computational model for visual information processing. Devaja talked about ConvNet. I will give a computational model for visual information processing where we can use ConvNet in intermediate process. I'll start from this example. This is example where Nilanjana left. So here there is some state of world, there is some sensory input, there is some cortical activity which take place inside her brain, and there is some associated action which take place with this activity. So Nilanjana explained the internal state, internal activity which take place inside our brain during this activity. I'll model all this activity with the help of mathematical tools. So these are the mathematical tools. There are some variables and the function. So X is the internal state of the external world, and R is the neuron fired inside our brain, and A is associated action which depend upon the neurons fired. So here comes the computation part. So this is the main computational thing which happen inside our brain. One thing is that the sensory stimulation, the activity in the retina, for example, is the produced by this state of the world is very high dimensional. And one of the key aspect of computation that take place in the brain is the reduction of the dimensionality. Here dimensionality of X is very less in comparison to dimensionality of Y. So we have very high dimensional signal, and we want to extract somewhere low dimensional variable that represent what we care about, that is behaviorally important, relevant in terms of the state of the world. So after this computation part, here comes the neural computation part, in which there are two stages: encoding and decoding. And in encoding, how sensory signals are transferred in the central nervous system, and in decoding, how these neural presence of activity is decoded to give rise to percept, to estimate the world that we care about. So next comes the Bayesian approach. Next comes the Bayesian approach. So how we can use this Bayesian approach to computationally model uh, uh, our functions. So this is a quite successful approach because it takes into account the uncertainty that are there in our brain, and it also take into account the photo receptor noise, the sensory receptor noise, and the neural activity itself is very much variable. So, so how, why do we care about this encoding and decoding? We care about this encoding because with the help of encoding, we can predict the neural activity in response to external stimuli, and we can process this neural activity to simulate external stimuli, and which can be used to develop retinal prosthetic. And we care about decoding because it can be used to quantify accuracy of the neural code, and predict intended behavior from neural activity, and it can be used to design neural prosthetic devices. And here comes the interesting mathematical part, that it is prior and it is likelihood. So we can decide or choose right prior according to our requirement. There are lots of research associated with this particular concept, and this laboratory is working on probabilistic model of visual segmentation. And then there are lots of literature available related to perception as Bayesian inference. And now I'll talk about the research in the area of visual information processing. So there is DeCollo lab at MIT, which is working to discover the neural algorithm underlying visual object recognition. It is also working on invariance problem, like how we can decide it is a car when there are different orientation and different backgrounds. And there is another lab, computational vision laboratory, which is working on the computational model of uh, coloring, how color are perceived inside our brain. So this is Drexel college laboratory, which have given this particular model of visual information processing. So that's all from my side. I'm Deepak from Visual Information Processing Group. Thank you.